Zoo-wee mama, how's it going everybody? I'm here today to talk about the upcoming February 2024 season for Marvel Snap. I'm going to give you the early preview of all of the cards that will be coming out that month, my initial thoughts and which ones you should definitely be on the lookout for and plan to buy. Now overall, I think it's a very, very strong season. Usually every season there's like one, maybe two cards that I think are really good and everyone kind of agrees upon, and maybe one kind of dud. This season they all look good. I think as a base floor, it's maybe the strongest set of cards we have seen for an entire season. And 2 to 3 of these cards could be a little too good where they might see a quick nerf after they come out. So February might honestly be the strongest season that we have seen so far. The theme is the Black Order, so we've got Thanos's minions and people in here. I'm not too much of a comic buff, but from what I understand, Black Swan is a pretty unknown character, even for comic buffs, so it's a bit of an interesting choice to have her be the season pass card, but I do think she's really good, and I'll go through all the cards and give my thoughts, so let's get into it. So first up, we've got Black Swan. Like I mentioned, she's the season pass card. She is a 2-cost, 3-powered card with the on reveal ability that until the end of next turn, all of your 1-cost cards cost 0. So any 1-cost cards in your hand are free next turn. And that's very good. Okay, it's kind of like Sarah, but she only costs 2, and obviously she doesn't target every card. But a card like Sarah is very strong, and Sarah you have to play on turn 5 essentially. Black Swan you can play whenever. You can play on turn 5 to go for a really big turn 6 play, slap down a bunch of 1-drops, maybe slap down Mysterio, which would power up your Bishop, and play a really big Hit Monkey. But you can also play Black Swan early. You could play Black Swan on turn 2, and on turn 3, all of your 1-cost cards in hand cost 0. So you just play a bunch of 1-cost cards on turn 3 for free, and then you play Beast, because Beast costs 3, and all of your other cards you just got for free, okay? Free and 3. And so you just play Black Swan on 2, and then play a bunch of stuff on 3, and with Beast you can bounce back all of those 1-cost cards, or you can even bounce back Black Swan and 2 of those 1-cost cards. So then you can play Black Swan again on turn 4 or 5, whichever you choose. So she just has immediate, very, very strong synergy with bounce decks. And you know, it's kind of a big change when Beast did get nerfed to being a 3-cost card, but it's just the perfect turn order now. Turn 1, do whatever. Turn 2, Black Swan. Turn 3, huge combo and bounce. So I think she's going to find an immediate home there. I think there's other just big Hit Monkey decks that's going to find a home. And we're going to see an increase of Mobius being played. Remember, Black Swan is the season pass card, so a lot of people will have her. I think she's the strongest season pass card since Miss Marvel. I think she's stronger than Scar and stronger than Sebastian Shaw. So we're going to see an increase of Mobius. We'll have to see how that turns out. You may have to tech against Mobius. So just to give my overall ratings, I think she's pretty fun. She allows you to just ramp things out quickly when you choose. Again, you can play her anytime between turns 2 and 5 to get value, and that's just going to be really cool. Flexibility is kind of there. You do need a really cheap deck, kind of like Sarah, but there are ways you can go about it. You can go for a more mid-range deck. You can go for bounce style. You do have a little bit of flexibility there and different cheap cards that you can slot in. And I think she's very, very competitive. Okay, these cards are data mined, so it is still a bit early. It's possible they see changes, although I would at most expect stat changes. I wouldn't really expect any ability changes since we are creeping up on the February season, which starts February 6th. So I think she's going to be very competitive. As long as she stays a 2-cost card, even if they did lower her power, just getting that ability right on turn 2 and being able to slap it down again on turn 5 if you bounce her, I think is very strong. So you're probably going to want to get the season pass if you do get them whenever it's a strong season pass card. Next up, we've got Supergiant, who is a 4-cost, 5-power card with the on reveal ability that all cards played next turn don't reveal until the game ends. And so Supergiant is coming out the very first week of the season as well. So remember that now we have a season pass card the first week and a new card in the Spotlight caches the first week. Okay, first week of new season, we get 2 new cards. So she's going to be in Spotlight caches with Darkhawk and Zabu. Supergiant is a 4-cost card. She obviously does synergize with Zabu, so that's just good timing right there. And getting Zabu plus Darkhawk is going to be great. So this is one of the best Spotlight caches that you will see. Even though they are Series 4 cards, if you don't have them, they're just very, very nice to have. And Supergiant herself will be Series 5 and worth 6,000 tokens. So that's going to be a good pickup, and I'm loving these variants, especially the Zabu variant. And her ability, just to give clarification, it affects you and your opponent. You're essentially giving like an Invisible Woman effect to the cards just played the turn after. So if you play Supergiant on 4, going into turn 5, you and your opponent will both be aware that your cards will not reveal. That means cards like Leech essentially become useless, Sarah, useless. If you want to play Magic on turn 5, useless. But you could also play Supergiant on turn 3, if you did get Zabu down, to make the turn 4 cards have to wait until the end of the game. Which again, for some cards, if you're relying on an ongoing ability or some kind of on reveal that you want to make use of the next turn, she essentially takes all use out of that card. Okay, again, like Leech that reveals at the end of the game does absolutely nothing. So there are some cards that Supergiant just really hard counters, but your opponent will know ahead of time. Because if you're playing Supergiant on 4, they're going to know on turn 5 that their Leech doesn't do anything, so they will switch their play. Okay, so it's not really a big surprise, but just a really, really strong effect, and 4/5 stat line I think is very nice. So here's just a close-up of Supergiant Spotlight variant along with my final ratings. I think she's kind of fun. She does hard counter things, but it may be kind of boring. I mean, you're going to have to play around her yourself. If you play her turn 4, you need something turn 5 that's basically just like raw power or endgame stats. In terms of flexibility, I think she's fairly flexible. I may even move her up as it gets closer to her final release because she works with Zabu. She may become kind of like a Legion where she just sees play in every deck. But if you're not running Zabu, 4 is a little expensive unless you're trying to counter something specific like Leech. In terms of being competitive, I think she's very, very good. Okay, this is another card. I told you the February season is starting off really strong because the big thing too is you can play Alioth. Alioth now kills all cards that are unrevealed, regardless of when they were played. So if you played Supergiant on turn 4, and at the end of turn 4, you had priority. Turn 5, you're playing cards, your opponent's playing cards, none of those cards are revealed. And so if you had priority at the end of turn 4, you're gonna have priority at the end of turn 5, because nothing was revealed. And then come around to turn 6, you just play Alioth, and you can kill cards they played on turn 5 and turn 6. Now your opponent is going to be aware of this, and if you did not have priority, then your turn 5 cards did not revealed, and your opponent could Alioth you. Okay, so again, Supergiant, both players have knowledge of it, and while your opponent does have to adjust, they could use it to their advantage. Okay, they could Alioth you, so I think we see a big uptick of Alioth this season. And Mobius here could counter Supergiant as well if she's always seen alongside Zabu. So expect a lot of Mobius in the February season. Next up, we have Cull Obsidian, who is a 4-cost, 9-powered card with the ability that you can only play this where you have at least one 1-cost card. Okay, now Cull Obsidian is going into Series 4. He's the one Series 4 card of the month, and he's going to be in spotlights with Nimrod and Thanos. And Thanos is definitely good to pick up if you don't have him, and I know a lot of people are going to be chasing this Thanos variant. The comic variants overall are really good, and this Thanos one is amazing. So this is a pretty good spotlight cache, and if you don't have Thanos, it's a great spotlight cache to pick up. Cull Obsidian is kind of direct power creep on Crossbones. I mean, Crossbones is a 4/8 that you can only play in a lane that you're winning. Cull Obsidian is a 4/9 that you can only play where you have a 1-cost card. And I don't think getting a 1-cost card down is too hard to do, especially you don't have to get it down on turn 1. You could get it down on turn 3 if needed. If you're playing him alongside Thanos, who is also in the Spotlight cache with direct synergy, then you're certainly going to have 1-cost cards down. So you're just getting a 4/9. Okay, I think it's kind of direct power creep on Crossbones, so I don't love that. But he's very strong. Again, he works with Thanos. He's going to work with Zoo-type decks. You could even do Kyera turn 3 into Cull Obsidian on turn 4 if you are playing a deck with a lot of 1-cost cards. So my early ratings for Cull Obsidian is that he's kind of boring. Again, you just play a 4/9, nothing's happening. Sometimes you can't play him on turn 4, sometimes you can. That's about the most interaction he gets. Okay, he's pretty bland, not really exciting. Kind of flexible. I mean, you can do Thanos, which is obvious, and you may find a good home there. You can do some black Swan decks that just have cheap cards, but you do need a deck that probably has at least 2 to 3 1-cost cards, okay? Because you do want to make sure you've drawn 1-cost cards before you draw Cull Obsidian, and you could play him with Zabu, and then he costs 3. You can even play him, you know, on a later turn, like turn 5 or 6. So, kind of flexibility. In terms of being competitive, I think he's good. I think he's decent. He's at a good spot. I don't think he's crazy. He's obviously not a card you build a deck around because he doesn't do anything. He just adds 9 power. And he doesn't even give a discount to Scar, because Scar needs 10 power cards to get discounted. So he kind of just gonna slot into some decks, and some decks he won't slot in. And that's kind of where I see him going. So I don't think he's a bad card by any means. I just think he's pretty bland and boring, but he is only 3,000 tokens. So it's kind of nice that you can just pick him up with tokens if you want. And this is a Spotlight variant. It's actually a pretty cool variant. I'm a big fan of this one. But overall, decent card. Next up, we've got Corvus Glaive, who is a 3-cost, 4-powered card with the on-reveal ability to discard 2 cards at random from your hand to get +1 max energy. Now, he's going to be going into Series 5, so he will be a full 6,000 tokens. He's going to be in Spotlight starting February 20th alongside X-23 and Gladiator. And this is an okay Spotlight cache to pick up. I mean, X-23 is a very good card, but she really only works in Destroy, although you may put her in your discard decks to get even more energy bonus, because she does work if she's discarded from hand. And then Gladiator as a 3/8 now is pretty good. I personally don't own him, so I'm going to be opening caches definitely to try and get Corvus and Gladiator. But in terms of Corvus himself and his ability, this is pretty good. I mean, Electro is the only other card in the game that gives you plus max energy permanently. Okay, some other cards give you a short buff. No one gives you a permanent buff. The nice thing about getting max energy instead of just reducing the cost of your cards is that you don't get countered by Mobius. Okay, I talked about how I think Mobius is going to see more play in February. Corvus doesn't care about Mobius. He's not discounting any cards, he's just giving you more max energy. And Electro is a 3/2, Corvus is a 3/4. That's better. He's good stats on the board actually. Electro limits you to only playing 1 card per turn as long as he's on the board. Corvus doesn't do that. Once he pops off, you have that max energy for free. Okay, once you've paid the small price, then it's free going forward in the following turns. You can play multiple cards, so it does open up some new combinations. You could even do some kind of shenanigans with Swarm. If you manage to discard Swarm with Corvus, and then you've got extra energy, turn 7, you can do some Wong Gambit stuff. I mean, he's gonna work really well there. So to give my ratings on Corvus, I think he's gonna be pretty fun. I mean, again, he's gonna fit in a couple different spots. You get energy, but you can actually play cheap cards with it, and we haven't really seen that before because Electro, you would have to kill to play cheap cards. So it's just gonna be this new kind of style that we haven't seen outside of something even like X-23, which helps Destroy get an energy boost for cheaper cards. Flexibility, it is discard, it is random discard. So unless you're okay just playing the lottery and hoping it doesn't discard your combo, you're definitely going to want some cards in your hand like Swarm, like Apocalypse, even Wolverine, X-23, or the card that I'm going to cover next. In terms of being competitive, I'm keeping my eye on Corvus. Right now I have him as 3 out of 4 stars for competitive because he is pretty specific with that 2 random discard. You do have to build around that and plan for that. He will screw you over sometimes, but that's very strong. You get extra energy and you don't have the same limitations as Electro. I'm thinking he's better than Electro. Okay, I think he can expand the archetype a bit more. I think he's a bit more flexible than Electro, and he's better stats. I mean, this might be a bit of power creep on Electro as well. So I'm going to keep my eye on him, try and think of more combos, as we get closer to his release and I start putting some decks together. And for the final card release of the February season, we are looking at Proxima Midnight, who is a 4-cost, 6-powered card with the ability that when this is discarded, it jumps to your lowest power location as long as it isn't full. Okay, so your lowest power location that has room for her basically. So she has great synergy with Corvus. So Corvus is coming out the prior week. Proxima is coming out February 27th, and once she comes out, Corvus gets even better because if you discard her with Corvus's random discard, it's just a free 6 power. Okay, it's kind of like a Wolverine that doesn't work with Destroy. If Wolverine only works when he was discarded from your hand, she's just gonna jump to a location, and it's even your lowest power location. Like, I don't think they needed to do that. That's just like an extra plus, where if she got discarded on turn 6, you know she's going to help you out where you need it. So very special there. We haven't really seen that before. Again, something like Wolverine X23, you don't know where they're going to land. You know where Proxima is going to land. And that's very, very interesting. It's a bit of a new mechanic. Now, it's no surprise that she's coming out in spotlights alongside MODOK and Dawkin, who are other very nice discard cards. If you don't have those, this is a great week for discard. But if you don't play discard, maybe you just skip on the whole spotlight for this one. Proxima is going to be, Series 5, 6,000 tokens, so you probably want to pick her up in spotlights if you can. But yeah, she's obviously going to work great with MODOK. Even playing MODOK on turn 6, you might even have Magic Mike on board. Dawkin, discard his blade to power him up. I mean, it's just going to work out really well. We're seeing a really good discard season shaping up for February, and discard currently is really strong with Black Knight, and even people are testing out Mike, so February is going to keep that going. For my ratings of Proxima, I don't think she's super fun. I mean, she sits in your hand, and if you can discard her, which if you draw MODOK you will be able to, you're going to see her jump to a location, and you know where she's jumping, and while that's good, RNG can be crazy and add fun to the game. And if you aren't able to discard her, or until then, she just sits in your hand as a 4/6. Okay, kind of like Cull Obsidian. She doesn't really do anything. There'll just be a point where she adds power to the board. So I don't think she's the most fun card. I think she's not flexible at all. She only works in discard. But if Corvus does see a lot of play, you could pretty much put Proxima in every deck you have Corvus. Okay, it could be kind of a package deal. So if people are trying Corvus in a full discard as well as a hybrid discard deck or these crazy, Wong Gambit discards, it's possible that Proxima just follows him. And in terms of being competitive, I think she's pretty competitive considering she's very limited to discard, but free 6 power. Like, that's really nice. You're discarding stuff and you just get free power on the board. A lot of discard decks right now are running Zabu anyways because of Black Knight and his Ebony Blade. So if that keeps going, Proxima could be a 3/6 that you play if you needed it, if you weren't able to discard. But I think she's going to be pretty competitive. I'm going to keep my eye on her. So to sum it all up, I do think the February season is going to be very, very strong and might be the strongest season we have ever seen, like I mentioned. I'm going to be paying very close attention to Black Swan, Supergiant, and Corvus. Any kind of changes they have from now until their official release. Again, this is still data mined, but I expect it to be fairly accurate. And if they don't get changed at all, they could be really, really good and maybe too good. Okay, Corvus, you have to build around a bit more. He's not as flexible, but Black Swan and Supergiant could fairly easily be broken. Okay, they could find themselves just having the power level of like an old Hitmonkey or something. Like, they just have crazy abilities that can just ramp out power for Black Swan, or Supergiant just enable Alioth even more, or even some more Galactus stuff or something. So they're interesting and they're maybe too good. I'm going to keep an eye on them, but even Cull Obsidian and Proxima I don't think are bad. I don't think there's any bad cards this month. I think as a base they're all decent, they're all okay and playable, but I think some of these are definitely better than others, so we'll have to see how they change if they do. So let me know which of these cards you're most excited to see come February and what kind of combos you expect to play them with. Remember to hit that subscribe button, and until then, stay positive. I'll see you next time.